everybody, welcome back to our channel. Welcome back to Memorial May. Today we are going to stretch our legs, get out and get a little bit of sunshine and some fresh air, and we're going to just hit all the historical markers that are in Melbourne Beach, which is south of where I live by 5 or 6 miles. There are several markers that are here, but the site is no longer here. There is at least one place that is here, but the marker is not here. So I just decided to combine all of these because they're in the span of about 1/10 of a mile, just to put all of them into one video and just show you the whole area of Melbourne Beach where we have Indian River Lagoon access. So come on, let's go check out some markers that aren't here, some places that aren't here, and a beautiful lagoon. Let's go.
The first marker we will come to as we drive west into historic Melbourne Beach is for the Myrtle Cottage, which is no longer standing today, unfortunately. Constructed on this site in 1888, Myrtle Cottage was built by Mrs. Hannah Cummings and her daughter Grace, and it was the first house in the area now known as Melbourne Beach. The house's construction was made very difficult by the lack of roads or docks to the mainland, and while it was being built, the Cummings family camped on the beach at the nearby House of Refuge, which is a shipwreck life-saving station. After its completion, the family lived in the large house and took in boarders, including Major Cyrus Graves, Mr. and Mrs. Henry Whiting, Mr. Alfred Wilcox, and others who eventually helped found Melbourne Beach. Myrtle Cottage was always an important part of the community. Church services and Sunday school classes were held there until 1892 when the community chapel was built. However, if repairs were needed to the chapel or if bad weather threatened, church services and classes were temporarily held in Myrtle Cottage. In later years, the house served as a rooming house for students from the Florida Institute of Technology. In 1982, the house caught fire and burned to the ground as a large number of people watched in dismay. There are still residents of Melbourne Beach today who fondly remember it as the grand old building. There is a historical marker right across the street from the Myrtle Cottage for the Community Chapel of Melbourne Beach. The local residents built this chapel in 1892 and made it non-denominational, which it remains today. In May of 1992, it was added to the U.S. National Register of Historic Places. Prior to the construction of this chapel, the community used the home of local resident Grace Cummings, called Myrtle Cottage, as their place of worship. For many years, mainland ministers held seasonal services at this chapel. The hurricane of 1924 significantly damaged the foundation of the chapel, and services did not resume until repairs were completed in 1927. In 1942, extensive upgrades to the chapel doubled the seating capacity from 70 to 140. Also, the size of the chancel was increased and transepts were added on the east and west sides. This is one of the first homes to exist in Melbourne Beach. The Rickman House was built in 1890 for Jacob Fox by Captain Rufus W. Beaujon. Both men were original investors in the Melbourne Beach Company, later named the Melbourne Beach Improvement Company. The Rickman House was built out of native pine and cypress that was brought to the Melbourne Beach on the vessel Frost Line. The 2-story house originally had no electricity, and water came from the Improvement Company's free-flowing artesian well. Jacob Fox and his family spent several seasons living here, enjoying the Atlantic Ocean and hunting and fishing, and socializing with the town's few residents. The house was acquired by Garrett E. Rickman, a wine merchant from New York and a major shareholder in the original Melbourne Beach Company in 1908. The Rickmans and their son Lawrence came to Melbourne Beach in 1908, followed by their daughter in 1910 after she graduated from Vassar College. Ruth Rickman was an active member in the Melbourne Beach community, volunteering her services as a private nurse to the town for many years. She bequeathed the Rickman House to the town of Melbourne Beach upon her death in 1979. This next building is so pretty. I love its architectural style and the beautiful beachy colors it's been painted. There was supposed to be a historical marker here, but I could not find it. This was originally known as the Villa Marine Hotel. The Villa Marine Hotel was erected in 1912 by W.L. Sweet. Its construction provided a sorely needed boost for Melbourne Beach as a vacation resort. Other more well-known resorts north and south were by this time outstripping this community in growth, prosperity, and renown. The concrete block for this building was manufactured on the site. A deep pit was dug to provide sand for blocks and for mortar. Lumber and other materials were brought by boat across from Melbourne. The Villa Marine operated on the American plan. Although the hotel provided the best accommodations in Melbourne Beach, the meagerness of its servings at mealtime were legendary. For a number of years, it successfully catered to tourists until the 1950s and 60s. The changing times caused it to become, in succession, a rooming house for space boom workers, a co-op retirement home, and a fraternity house for a local college. In 1987, this structure was extensively remodeled to become a dental office. I can't believe I have to admit it, but I've actually never been to the Melbourne Beach Pier, so let's check this out together. This is a really neat historic replica that was built in 2006 in honor of the Melbourne and Atlantic Railroad. On this site, in February of 1889, Captain Alfred Wilcox took delivery of a shipment of steel rail that would be used in the building of the Melbourne and Atlantic Railroad. Over the coming months, railroad track would be laid to connect the Indian River with the Atlantic Ocean. Starting on the western end of the Melbourne Beach Pier and running the distance of the pier and then continuing along in a straight path to the Atlantic Ocean, which is where Ocean Avenue would later be built, The Melbourne and Atlantic Railroad greatly improved ocean access for the growing number of citizens and visitors in Brevard County. On July 7, 1889, Major Cyrus E. Graves signed the paperwork that laid out the streets of Melbourne Beach and allowed the railroad company to lay and operate a railroad throughout the center of Ocean Avenue forever unmolested. Captain Rufus Beaujon and his sons Don and Claude provided for a fee motorized tram rides from the pier to the ocean. The last historical marker that we have in this area is for the Melbourne Beach Pier itself. Originally built by the Melbourne and Atlantic Railroad Company, this pier was the gateway to the Barrier Island. A port facility for tourists, residents, freight, and mail, it supported a standard gauge railroad from the west end of the pier to the Atlantic Ocean, 1/2 mile to the east. This historic landmark was listed on the National Register of Historic Places on April 12, 1984. The Florida Department of Natural Resources and the Florida Recreation Development Assistance Program and local citizens all generously contributed funds to assist in the 1985 restoration project.
Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I thought it would just be fitting to combine all of these markers and all of these sites into one video since they're all so close together. As you can see, I pretty much almost completely kept the camera rolling the entire time. As it turns out, there is a tour at the Rickman House, which I would love to go on, but I need to I got more videos I have to film today, so that might be something I have to come back and check out another time. But at least you got to see the architecture of the outside of the house, which is what, for me, I thought would be the most interesting. Maybe we can come back and do a tour another day. Other than that, that's everything there is to remember about Melbourne Beach as far as historical markers, and I will see you all another day at another adventure. Bye everybody.